Welcome to Factastic Channel. Today we will talk about the 5 creepy facts about notorious killers and their crimes. But before we start, you must subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive all new updates. Serial killers, driven by dark desires, commit shocking and terrifying crimes, captivating society's morbid fascination. Join us in this video as we explore the disturbing world of these notorious killers and their gruesome deeds.
Number 1. Bel Gunis. Bel Gunis is a notorious figure in criminal history, known for her crimes, which include murder and fraud. She was a Norwegian immigrant who lived in the United States in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Bel Gunis is often referred to as one of America's first female serial killers. Her modus operandi was indeed to marry men and then murder them for financial gain, often taking out life insurance policies on them before their deaths. She lured potential victims, usually through Lonely Hearts ads, and convinced them to visit her remote farm in La Porte, Indiana. Once at her farm, her victims met a gruesome fate. Many were killed and their bodies were buried on her property. It's believed that she killed numerous men, including her 2 husbands and several suitors. The exact number of her victims remains unknown, but estimates range from 25 to 40 or more. Bel Gunis's crimes were discovered in 1908 when her farm burned down and the bodies of her victims were found buried on the property. However, Bel herself disappeared and was never apprehended. Her true fate remains a mystery, as some believe she may have faked her death and disappeared to avoid capture and prosecution. Bel Gunis's story is a chilling and disturbing example of a person who used marriage as a means to commit heinous crimes. Her case continues to be a subject of fascination and speculation in the realm of true crime.
Hey there, did you know about Bel Gunis, the notorious serial killer from the early 1900s? Here are some weird facts about her. Bel was a Norwegian immigrant who settled in Indiana and began running a hog farm. She was suspected of killing her first husband and her 2 young children in a fire, but was never charged. Bel placed personal ads in newspapers seeking wealthy suitors, and then killed them for their money and property. She's believed to have killed at least 14 people, including suitors and hired hands on her farm. Bel was never caught, and there are rumors that she faked her own death and escaped to start a new life elsewhere. Her story inspired numerous books, songs, and even a play. So, what do you think of this twisted tale?
Number 2. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was inspired by a real serial killer. Yes, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a horror film that was inspired by real-life events and serial killers, although it is important to note that the movie itself is a work of fiction. The film, released in 1974 and directed by Tobe Hooper, is considered a classic of the horror genre. The inspiration for the film came from the crimes of Wisconsin serial killer Ed Gein, who was active in the 1950s. Ed Gein, often referred to as the Butcher of Plainfield, was known for his gruesome crimes, which included murder, grave robbing, and creating macabre keepsakes and items from human body parts. Among other things, he fashioned furniture and clothing from human skin and bones. While the film's storyline is not a direct representation of Ed Gein's crimes, it borrowed elements from his activities, such as the creation of masks and furniture from human remains. The character of Leatherface, the chainsaw-wielding killer in the movie, is loosely based on Ed Gein's twisted actions. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a work of fiction, but its disturbing and gritty portrayal of horror has made it a landmark in the genre. It's important to remember that the film is not a direct retelling of Ed Gein's life, but rather draws inspiration from his crimes to create a terrifying cinematic experience. Number 3. Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first murder at 18. Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first murder in 1978 when he was just 18. He would go on killing until his arrest in 1991. After an African-American man escaped his clutches and hailed down police near Milwaukee, Wisconsin. When the victim led police back to his captor's apartment, they discovered photographs of dismembered bodies, the severed heads and genitalia of several other men, and a tub full of acid that Dahmer had used to dispose of some of his 17 victims. Dahmer had lived a shiftless life, dropping out of college and the army and living with various family members before being kicked out by his grandmother and settling in the Milwaukee apartment 3 years before his 1991 arrest. And with several murders already under his belt, Dahmer was convicted of drugging and sexually molesting a young teenager. After serving only a year, he was released and continued his killing binge, which focused almost entirely on young men of color. Dahmer's sensational trial, featuring lurid descriptions of his eating the body parts of some of his victims and admissions of necrophilia, renewed the world's interest in serial killers. In 1992, Dahmer was sentenced to 957 years in jail, but was killed by a fellow inmate just 2 years later.
Did Jeffrey Dahmer beg for his life before he was killed in prison? Did he ask forgiveness for his crimes? Or did he resign himself to his fate? We have the answer. Dahmer began serving his prison sentence at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. Here, Dahmer began studying the Bible and declared himself to be a born-again Christian. His stay in prison wasn't a long one, however. While cleaning the prison showers on the morning of November 28, 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer was attacked by fellow inmate Christopher Scarver. Scarver used a metal bar to strike Dahmer over the head, taking the killer off guard. Scarver then began beating Dahmer without restraint. Dahmer was found alive by prison workers who then called for an ambulance. He was unconscious and barely alive and died from his injuries soon after being taken into medical care. When questioned by authorities, Scarver declared that he had been, in his words, the chosen one to carry out Dahmer's death. Scarver also revealed to authorities the chilling details of Dahmer's murder. After striking Dahmer with the metal bar, Scarver reported that Dahmer stated, "I don't care if I live or die. Go ahead and kill me."
Later, Number 4, Harold Shipman, aka Dr. Death, killed 218 patients. One of history's deadliest serial killers was a married family man who managed to squeeze in 218 credited murders, as many as 250, while working as a popular British physician. Harold Shipman began his murderous spree in 1972. And it's believed he killed at least 71 patients while working at his first practice and doubled that number at a second practice he joined after butting heads with colleagues who found him arrogant, brusque, and overconfident. Finally, in 1998, both a local undertaker and another doctor noticed the unusually high number of cremation certificates Shipman had signed off on. They also noticed striking similarities in the recently deceased patients themselves. The majority were elderly women who were found sitting up and fully clothed, not in bed as would usually be the case with the gravely ill. Despite these clues, this initial investigation was shoddily handled, allowing Shipman to kill 3 more times. Shipman's luck ran out later that year, when the daughter of his final victim, lawyer Kathleen Grundy, claimed he'd not only killed her mother but had also tried to create a new fake will, naming him as her sole beneficiary. Unlike his earlier victims, Grundy had not been cremated, and an autopsy revealed lethally high levels of diamorphine, the drug Shipman used for most of the killings. He was formally charged with 15 murders and was convicted and sentenced to life without parole in 2000. Shipman died in 2004 after committing suicide in his cell. He never admitted to any of the killings. Number 5, Ted Bundy, the first televised murder trial. Handsome, well-educated, and brimming with charm, Ted Bundy seemed the unlikeliest of serial killers, which made his decade-long multi-state killing spree all the more surprising, and to some appealing. Born to an unwed, teenage mother, Bundy never learned his father's identity and was raised believing that his grandmother was his sister. Following a difficult adolescence, Bundy graduated from the University of Washington and soon embarked on his murderous spree, killing his first victim in Seattle in 1966. Focusing primarily on attractive college co-eds, Bundy committed a series of murders across the Pacific Northwest. He continued to Utah and Colorado, killing several more women before being arrested. Despite being convicted of kidnapping, he managed to escape police custody not once, but twice while awaiting trial in Colorado. He moved to Florida, where he killed several members of a sorority and his final victim, a 12-year-old girl whom he raped and murdered. When Bundy was finally apprehended while driving a stolen car a week after his last murder, his trial quickly became a media sensation. It was the first murder trial to be fully televised and featured Bundy front and center, acting as one of his defense attorneys. He became a media star, welcoming journalists to his cell, receiving letters of admiration from lovelorn fans, and even marrying one of them, and providing an endless list of clues about additional murders he may have committed in the hopes of delaying his execution. It didn't work. He was executed in the electric chair in 1989, with the true number of his victims unknown.
These serial killers left a trail of terror and death in their wake, with their crimes continuing to captivate and disturb people to this day. Thank you for watching. See next video.